This is a Lowell Observatory podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Welcome to Starstuff, a space oddity.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Star Stuff. I am your host, Cody Halfmoon, and today we're with some really cool people. You'll probably recognize the infamous Kevin Schindler. Historian Kevin Schindler. And today I am fangirling and embarrassing myself all evening. We have astronaut Nicole Stott. Hello.
Hello.
And we don't typically say when we record podcast episodes because it's really awkward when we post it, but it's really important, I think, today to say what day it is. Take it away, historian. What day
93 years ago today, on this very night, Clyde Tombaugh discovered Pluto right here at Lowell Observatory. And so we're celebrating that, and that's why Nicole's in town.
Yes.
To celebrate this, because we're celebrating inspiration and pursuit of excellence. And Nicole is the epitome of that.
Aw.
Yes. And you get to stay in the Clyde Tombaugh apartment tonight.
I am.
Which is so cool.
And there's now an asteroid Stott.
Oh my gosh, asteroid
Official.
Stott. That was cool. Were you expecting that? Was that a surprise?
No, I was not expecting that. Who
You can't
expects to
tell
have an
those things.
asteroid?
I know.
And then beautiful art to complement it.
Yeah, George Averbuch's globe.
Oh my gosh. And then the certificate for the asteroid is a work
beautiful.
of art.
Yeah.
That is gorgeous.
Yes.
And it's something that's unique here at Lowell Observatory because our scientists discover these things, and you get to name them. And so finding important people or people that make a difference in this world, and you're such a great example of that.
I'm so thankful.
So the
Very
other
grateful.
guests who are watching who are like, I went on Star Stuff and I didn't get an asteroid name. Go to space and come back to us. Okay.
Yeah, live 104 days in space.
Yes.
And several weeks underwater as
Yes.
part of the training.
And then change the world when you get back.
Yes. And work with kids around the world to inspire them about space.
Yes,
And
and
about the world in general.
And I'd love to talk about that. So obviously, if we put out here on YouTube, oh my gosh, we have an astronaut here on the podcast. We have to talk about some of the obvious things. So I want to get that out of the way first, some the fun space questions that you probably could answer in your sleep. And might be answering in your sleep because it's quite late. We just got back from our iHeart Pluto Festival.
I think the sun was
Night of
coming
Discovery.
up, I saw.
Yeah. So it's early. So I said, astronauts. Of course she's okay with recording a podcast after this day. So there are a few fun questions, but my favorite thing to know is what is the most common question that you are asked?
I think there's two.
Okay.
One might be the obvious one. They both might be, because I think people want to know what it feels like. So the question, what's it feel like to be in space?
Physically, yeah.
Physically, yeah. And then the other one is, how do you go to the bathroom in space?
Okay. So what I would like to do is have us answer those for you and see how close we are.
Okay.
Because I'm sure you're tired of answering these questions.
All right. Well,
Okay.
Go for it.
So, Kevin, how does one use the restroom in space?
There's
Apollo nerd, you have to know.
There's a diaper thing you tape on, right?
We've advanced.
Yes.
We've advanced
A little
since
bit.
then. Yes, thank goodness.
I recall
Our historian's answer.
Yes, we've advanced. So even on the flight, on the space shuttle, and for launch, we would wear a diaper just because there's hours and hours being at the launch pad and then launch and before you can get out of your suit and stuff. I don't know how many people actually use it.
How silly does it feel to have that really cool
You
slow-mo
know what?
walk with the helmet, knowing and no one else in the crowd knows
they
that
know.
you're wearing a diaper?
Well, and it looks like you. I mean, it's does my butt look big in this flight?
It looks puffy.
It's that's just the way the suit is anyway.
Pampers.
So it's just, but you're really thankful, I think, to have it. But then I remember during practice for launch before the actual day. And because when you launch, it's take your airplane and then rotate it vertical. So you're on your back, right? You're laying on your back looking up. And they want you to know that you could use the diaper, right? That you could go if you needed to, because you don't want to hurt yourself. So you want to know that you could use it. So mentally, though, we're so trained now to not pee our pants, right? I mean, literally, you get a mental block to it. So to practice that was kind of interesting. I'm going to practice being in a diaper.
That's amazing. And so
Well,
you're all
laying on
just
my back, you know.
you're
or-
sitting here with all these other scientists and astronauts, right? And you're just like, we have to practice peeing in front of you.
And
Is that-
they want you to. So
oh
I mean,
gosh,
first
well, you know,
flight, yeah.
no stone unturned at NASA.
Yeah.
So
And it's a good thing. I mean, you can even practice at home. You can like lay down in your bathtub
and
or something.
we encourage everyone at home, if you want to know what it's like to be an astronaut, Amazon some Pampers. So
I can see how that builds camaraderie. I mean, having to do stuff like that, it's a source of laughter, I'm sure.
Oh, there is. Yeah.
there's
yeah.
no bonding like being with friends.
Yes.
Yeah. It is. But and then on the vehicles themselves, like on the space station, there's a whole like hygiene facility with the potty, and the most interesting, like different, is really number one, because it's just this big long hose with a yellow funnel on the end of it. You take the cap off, turn the fan on, it starts pulling airflow through it, and then it's just all about
It's a
like
Chewy.
aim and speed. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and kind of cool that all of that urine from all of your friends gets collected and then
beautiful.
recycled into clean drinking water.
that is wow.
It's
So you
a
don't have,
wonderful thing.
as they said, the constellation urine anymore, floating off in space as they release the.
There are still some what I think we refer to like urine dumps, but it's not. We don't want to waste it
Right.
either.
Drinking water, is that what you'd said? It's all recycled into drinking water.
It is recycled into drinking water.
What's that taste like?
It tastes just fine.
Wow.
It's and you know, of course we do tests on it and everything, and
That's beautiful. Nicole.
like cleaner than what we normally
really
get
gets
out of
to-
our taps. Yeah.
It seems like it gets to one of your points that what you adapt to in space, we can really do that on Earth in so many ways.
Absolutely.
Well, this is when they say, like New York has some of the cleanest filtered water. You can use this as an example. Like you can filter anything, man. I mean, if you've got the right
Yeah.
equipment and
And it's cool
It's
because, bringing that technology back to Earth is, it's kind of what we do with a lot of things. You've taken it to space, you've done this compact kind of thing to deploy it on a space station, and then, you bring it back to Earth somewhere, it packaged maybe a little bit differently, but now you're providing this opportunity to like literally bring clean drinking water to a place that
Yeah.
never had it before.
it's amazing.
It's very cool. Or in like disaster, zones and stuff like that. Yeah, kind of cool.
And so the second question was, how does it feel to be in space? So that was the physically, how does it feel? And so my guess would be is that it feels, I feel like I would have a lot of stomach upset, and it would be really, really exhausting. It sounds. I fangirl over astronauts because of like who these women are. It's fantastic to me. Literally, no one never want to go to space. It sounds terrifying.
Oh my gosh, no. No. It's wonderful. And
What is
I mean,
it
there's
like?
phases of flight, right? There's the launch and what you feel with all of that load on your body, 7 million pounds for the space shuttle, at least, of rocket thrust exploding underneath you, get you off the planet has a real hold on us. It takes a lot of energy.
She loves us.
To get out of Earth's hold on us and then be orbiting the Earth, and even in low Earth orbit. And so that's a different feeling to what it is to land. And it's a different feeling to what it's like to just be in that microgravity environment. And that's the thing I think most people are asking about. What's it like to be up there floating and flying and just moving effortless in 3 dimensions, just moving effortlessly, and how cool it is that I think our brains and our bodies figure that out. Like in whatever extreme environment we're in, they're figuring it out. And thankfully, well, and I say that because thankfully, there's the positive side of it where it becomes effortless. You know that you don't need to push hard. You just gently tap and you're moving up into the corner and you roll and flip and do these things to move from one place to another. And then the downside of it is, though, that your brain and your body figures out, man, I don't need like bones or muscles anymore to move in this environment. And so our brains and our bodies are always trying to figure out, what do I need to expend the energy on to keep us in good shape? And they discover, no, I don't need to expend energy on bones or muscles anymore.
Yep.
So we go into essentially like an accelerated osteoporosis, muscle loss. And so we have to be very proactive about counteracting that with 2 hours of exercise a day, look the kinds of food we eat, all of these kinds of things to be able to have the bones and muscles and the strength, if nothing else, to come back to gravity, which, by the way, is a lot. I mean, gravity, it's like that song, it's, working against me. I mean, we are under so much load every day that we don't think about it. It just feels normal. And then you come back from space and it's like, man, my head weighs a lot.
And you got taller in space.
Think about, and you get taller, you get all stretched out in space. And
Yeah, like a gray man.
it's
like an
really,
alien boy.
and then and it's so cool. I mean, that, like your fluids shift too in your body once you get to microgravity. So, all this fluid shifting up like towards your head. A lot of people look really like puffy, like filled out in their face.
They're long, their heads are big, their
it's all,
eyes.
it's like, ooh, aliens, whatever. But it's kind of cool. You get the most amazing lift.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
From it, the lines fill out. It's just awesome. And then you come back to gravity, it all goes right back to where it was.
Gravity always wins.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So my personal question, before we get into some of the stuff I really want to talk about in the time we have.
Besides the bathroom,
that was the most priority. You can actually stop listening now. You've heard the best part is we know how to pee in space. My experience in Houston was, going to NASA, and I think I've talked about it on the podcast before, but I just started like crying because I'm looking in the control room and I see a female scientist in the control room talking to, and they feed the audio in so you can hear what they're saying, talking to a woman on doing science in space.
Right.
And I got to like hear and see their interaction with each other as they were doing this science experiment, checking in with each other, complimenting each other, just like, you're doing so fantastic. Thank you so much. And I'm just crying like, I love women. It's so amazing. And it was incredibly inspiring for me. And I was curious. It seemed like at NASA there was just like a lot of support there, at least in that control room. And I'm wondering what your experience was I noticed in one of the photos that you shared in your time in space that you were the only woman on the on the vehicle, as you called it.
Yeah, on my cruise, I was, on my flights, I was the only woman. I never really thought about it until somebody said, "Oh, what's it like to be the only woman on the thing?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, it's great." Not that I don't want to see more women, I think, but it was like I felt good about the crew I had, and the people I was with, and it's so. I mean, I always felt supported in all the jobs I had at NASA, not just astronaut, all along, and learned some of the greatest lessons in my life and how to not just be working as an engineer with NASA or an astronaut, but these things that apply to everything, like a mentor and a dear friend, Jay Honeycutt, who and ended up being the center director at KSC, but just as like a hero of NASA overall. And his thing to us as young engineers at Kennedy Space Center was like, we're here to solve really challenging problems. To do that, you've got to go into it believing there's a solution to the problem. And then on top of that, you need to be operating like with this approach of here's how we can, not why we can't. And oh my gosh, that doesn't apply just to space stuff. That's like working with, figuring out how to deal with your plumber at home or a lawyer or whatever,
deal with it all the time. Yeah.
Like positively and believing there's a solution and, going with it, you're going to find it. And then on top of that, you mentioned like these women, an astronaut on board and somebody in the control center. Yeah. We are, I think like last year was the 50th anniversary of the last time as human beings we we're walking on the moon, orbiting it, and I'm very thankful we're getting ready to go back. And
Yes, so exciting.
it is very exciting. And back then, there was one woman in the mission control room, but she wasn't in the front room. She was in the back room, Poppy Northcutt. At launch control in Florida, there was one woman, Joanne Morgan, in the control center. That was it. Now, 50 years later, incredible women are running those two facilities. And, we just had that Artemis test flight. You had Charlie Blackwell Thompson, the first, female launch director, for a mission like this. And you look into the control center and it's just like this mix of humanity.
It's amazing.
It's every flavor human you can imagine is in there. And you're not like, ooh, where's Joanne?
Yeah.
And I don't know what the secret sauce is with NASA. And I speak to like human spaceflight in particular, but it's in the Mission Control Center. It's in the training group. It's in the engineering support. It's in the astronaut office. I mean, now there's roughly 40-ish active astronauts in the office. Roughly 40% are women.
Yeah.
And you go to, most any university engineering program, and they are struggling to have 20%, enrollment. And so I'm wondering at some point, is it about the numbers, in any of the places, or is it making sure that we are welcoming, whether it's at the university or in the workplace, that young women and young men and, across all the demographic know that they could have a place there.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Is like the representation is such a big deal because, I as an English major, seeing a woman up there, I was inspired. And just tonight, I heard two girls. One was probably 5, one was maybe 12. Just, she's so cool. Oh my gosh, I want to be like that. I want to be like that. And like that kind of thing is so, when you're at an impressionable age like that, to see, I don't know. I think it makes such a big difference. And I know it's one of those things where it's like, you were up there and doing your job and didn't really think about it. And who knows how many female scientists or just women of confidence that you've inspired, which is really cool.
Well, and I want us to get to the point where we're not having to think about it, right?
Yeah, that would be great.
And, but I love that you witnessed that happening tonight. I think I think there's so much to just being present, like making yourself present. You want other people. I'm excited about what I'm really like blessed to have done what I did, right? And I want other people to have that opportunity. You want other young women to have that opportunity. And sadly, we're still in a state where I think, young girls, they still need the see it, be it thing. I mean, remember going to career days for my son through school, and the boys, and I don't like to stereotype anything, but the boys were just like, okay, is that person, are they doing something cool that I might want to do? They're not thinking, is that a man up there doing something cool? But the young girls, they are looking for that representation still. And
it's like a safety too, because you know that it's somewhere you can be safe.
Yeah. And I think it's, encouraging young girls that way. I think it's part of what we should be doing. And, hopefully is, beyond encouraging them to see someone else doing it, is for them to imagine them doing themselves, but imagining it in enough to where they'll put themselves out there to consider it and do the things that they have control of in the like for me, I would have talked myself right out of filling out the application to be an astronaut. Oh, why would they pick me? What have I done? And it really took speaking to mentors to just say, hey, what do you think about this? And having that, it's like they gave me permission to do the one thing I had total control of. They're like, Nicole, just fill out the application. I mean, they didn't say, oh, you'll make the greatest astronaut there ever was, And I'm like, they might say that now, but
and you were on the commercial.
That's after.
What a great commercial.
I would never have imagined in my life being on a Super Bowl commercial. And I
really only did that because
the company they were running a really amazing campaign that was supporting young women. It was like an organization called Girls Who Code. And they were, it was like dollar for dollar matching for like purchases that were being done for this group. And and it was funny. I did an interview about that. And at the very end, he says, I'm wondering, Nicole, how do you feel about the fact that more people through this Super Bowl will probably see you and recognize the astronaut thing and be thinking about space because you're doing a Super Bowl commercial than might have when you were getting ready to launch to space or when you were doing like real spaceflight stuff? And I thought, man, I could go down a really negative path here with this. Like, why aren't people paying attention to space and all that? And I'm like, you know what? They chose space as their theme and they're using it to lift up other young women. I'm like, if this is what gets them thinking about space,
whatever sells, man.
It's a different audience that
Go
you might
for it.
not otherwise reach.
Absolutely. It's why art is so. I considered it kind of an artistic thing as well, to be doing something like that. And engaging audiences that might not even know there's a space station up there, where everything that's happening there is ultimately about improving life on Earth.
And that makes me think the book that you wrote, which everybody should read, because it's a mix of your experiences and then how you can use those experiences to make life better on Earth, something we can all learn. But you talk about the Earthrise moment. I'm going back to 1968 with Apollo 8 famously seeing our globe. Maybe talk about that a little bit and how that has really driven you.
Yeah, I think it was, for me, it was a really, I don't know, I think I think it was a way like Earthrise. I think everybody, even if they aren't following along with space, you say that, they know what you're referring to, right? This image of Earth rising over the horizon of another planetary body. The first time with like human eyes, we were seeing that, and that crew very kindly sharing it with us the way they did, as people of the planet kind of thing. And that picture, to me, there's no better image of who and where we are together in space, right? And it just made me think that, oh my gosh, if we can use that as a way to get people to just look around themselves every day, just right here on the planet, for the awe and wonder that surrounds us, to remember, oh my gosh, we live on a planet, we're all Earthlings, only border that matters, that thin blue line, and bring that into our lives. I think it's just such a powerful thing. And if using something like Earthrise moment, like, okay, think about something that was so awesome and wonderful and really got you considering your place, in space with everyone else, and how you should be behaving like a crewmate, not a passenger.
I noticed
that
you
were doing that.
You were writing that when you were, so there was a line through the theater for book signing moments to see it. I noticed that when you were signing the books, you put, was it crew, not passenger?
Yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit for our listeners?
I think that, and with the book too, I've never wanted to write a memoir, right? I wanted to use experiences in my life to share this story, but it was more about how is it that we build this mechanical life support system in space? Yeah. And we purposefully know we have to go there just to be able to survive there before we can do any science or international relationship stuff or anything. It's got to be this intact life support system. And so every morning we wake up and we're like, ooh, how much CO2 is in our atmosphere and how much clean drinking water we to have. And, is the metal, this metal hull that's wrapped around me, what great shape is it in? And, are my crewmates all healthy and well? And it's just like the perfect example for how we should be doing that down here on Spaceship Earth.
Yes.
And so to me, this idea of being crewmates and not taking an active role, like actively participating in this planet that is our like planetary life support system and protecting the things about it that allow us to survive and maybe even thrive here.
Yeah. Protect the whole.
That's being a crew. That's being a crew. That's not being a passenger. And it's what's so great about working with kids on this stuff too. They get it. You start talking to them about that stuff and they're like, oh, I get that. I could be a crewmate, and hopefully that sticks with them, then throughout the rest of their lives.
Well, and
really
it's
awesome.
at some point it's so easy to understand. It gets so, it'll get either politicized or it will get some other emotional aspect of it. But you talk to a kid, it's like, yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's so simple. It's almost like, is it too simple? Is it like, am I oversimplifying this?
Right.
We've got 7 people living on a space station and we've got 7 billion, right? So it's almost, is it 8 billion?
Something
It's like
yeah.
almost 8. Yeah,
More
it's
than
8
5.
now, or yeah.
In Houston.
And I realize it's like ginormous matter of scale kind of thing. But I think when you kind of embed it in your life, like wake up every morning, like, okay, I'm going to be a crewmate.
Yeah.
It seems kind of like then you're deliberately considering it.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But when you talk about seeing the thin blue line in the atmosphere, it's incredibly thin.
Yeah.
When you think about our planet, and we are really all reliant on each other. Like you said, it's so simple. It should be to capture that.
Yeah.
When I like that you said too, how are my crewmates doing? Because it kind of reminded me of the work that you did. Was it at McDonald Hospital in Houston, or was it a children's hospital?
It was a children's. When we started in Houston on the art project, it was at MD Anderson, the pediatric
my
cancer
mother
center there.
Was a cancer research nurse there. I'm a
Aw,
huge fan of
see?
MD Anderson. So at MD Anderson, Nicole had started an art project. You just go to do art, and it grew into this project is what happened.
Yeah,
here.
it really wasn't my thing at all. The Ian Sion, the artist who had started their art and medicine program there with the kids, wanted to do a space-themed project. And so that, we ended up coming up with spacesuits as the theme. And, it was really, I think it was like, ooh, spacesuits are cool, at first. And then we're
cool.
like, oh my gosh, you've got these kids in this place where they're going through treatment. It's like their protective zone, is in this hospital now, is, providing them with what they need to stay alive and all of these things, which is exactly what a spacesuit does for you, exactly what our planet, does for us. And so it worked. It turned out to be this really kind of profound, I think, art project as well, just from the standpoint of we're doing spacesuits. And how it grew out of that. But
and how cool did it was the output.
Oh my gosh.
So basically it was pieces of fabric that different children would create art on. You sewed that fabric together to make a spacesuit and then sent it into space on an astronaut.
Yeah. And it's, it's like the cover of a suit, but to me,
It's very cool.
There's this like serendipity in it too, with the people that have come together to work on it. Ian starting this, and we were thinking it's just like a one-off thing. I really thought I'm going there for the day to paint with these kids and walked out of there with my next mission in life. Right. And just appreciating what these families are going through and stuff, and being able to provide in some way, their kids and them with this like transcendent experience almost, the opportunity to have space as this inspiration and the creative outlet of art. It's a way that, these kids are talking about their future and like sitting up straighter.
That broke my heart when you were talking about
oh my
that.
gosh.
Nicole.
And there's so much to it that, I was like, okay, this is not just a one-off thing. And then to see each of these individual pieces of art that are so beautiful on their own and what they represent coming together into this suit, and that the suits are sewn together by ILC Dover, the company that made my spacesuit that I did a space for, made the Apollo suits, are making the greatest, they are the spacesuit company, make the suits that we're going to go back to the moon with and do more spacewalks on the space station with. And they have volunteered with us since the very beginning to quilt these kids' artwork together into these suits.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely would say look this up if you haven't. And there are so many other things that we could probably talk about for another 45 minutes.
yes,
The
very
watercolor art that you did while
fun.
you were
Putting the human in human spaceflight,
Oh my
baby.
gosh, yes. All of the neat, I love some of the things you were saying in your presentation, how you'd refer to like, well, I was just over there floating around. I was floating over there instead of standing over there and looking through the window, and the window being to looking at Earth, and the photography that you've taken. So I would just say, we could probably sit here for another 2 hours. But I'd encourage all of our listeners to just like look up this woman. She's so cool. It was so neat to see a theater, an auditorium of people just fangirling.
The response was great, and then
Oh
you
my
guys
gosh.
so grateful to the thankfulness too.
Oh my
And,
gosh, we were all just
the
huddled.
Pluto scene was
The
really
Pluto
good.
scene.
Pluto's a planet, by the
There's
way.
a planet. You heard
Just
it here.
saying.
You heard it here. Yeah, we
We're
were
in
all
the
just
land of Pluto.
we were just huddled around like, oh my gosh, did you talk to her? Oh my gosh, this is the dumb thing I said when I talked to her. It was so cool. So seriously, an honor to have you on
Thank you
Star
very
Stuff.
much.
I know that it was a long day, and we
been
appreciate
good.
you being a guest on
Thank
this.
you.
So with that was it. Was there anything else you'd like to say to our listeners, or where can we find your book, or where would you prefer that people buy your book if you have a preference?
Well, you can check out my website, NicoleStott.com, and there's a link to where to get the book. Any place you buy books, you should be able to get it. And please check out the Space for Art Foundation.
Yes.
I think it will make you smile.
And we'll put links to all of that in our Discord as well. Cool. So thank you so much for listening, and thank you to everyone who's donated money. They'll buy us pizzas during our YouTube videos, and all of you are fantastic. So thank you so much. And yes, see you next time. Bye.
This podcast was made possible by our members and donors. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support our nonprofit in making more digital education like this available, go to lowell.edu/donate. Thanks for listening.